So welcome everyone to our meeting today with Baltimore County City Schools. We really appreciate everybody being here. My name is Kelly Caudle, and I'm with Stanley Community College's Instructor Training Center and Academy Support Center. And we are going to, we've actually got a great treat today. We have with us Chris Myers from Cisco as a senior TAC manager in the Nexus area, and also one of his engineers, Scott Hopman. I hope I said that correctly, Scott. We're going to have them talk a little bit about the day in the life of a TAC engineer. So Scott is a TAC engineer and can tell you a little bit about how long he's been with Cisco and kind of his career path, but talk about the day in the life of an engineer. And then Chris is going to talk about what he looks for when he goes to hire folks to work at Cisco and what they're looking for in terms of talent and abilities and the types of students they look for. So with that, want to turn it over to either Scott or Chris? You want me to turn it over to Scott first?
Yeah, Scott, if you're ready to go ahead and share, I'd love for you to
and let me
people
do
know
this.
the day in the
Scott,
life.
I'm gonna make you a co-host.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And I will also make you, Chris, a co-host. So if y'all need to share anything, let me make sure I've got it set where multiple people can share. And yes, I do. So Scott, if you have anything to share, you may share it this time.
Okay, great, thanks. Let me see here.
And I will actually turn my video off for just a second and step out of the office and say.
All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it.
Loud and clear.
All right, you see the blue one, right?
Yes, sir. A day in the life.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. All right, so thanks everyone. My name is Scott Hopman. I'm a technical consulting engineer with the data center route and switch team with Cisco Systems in the RTP area. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey into the role, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the day in the life of the TAC engineer as well. So just a little bit about me. I've been with Cisco for about 1.5 years now. I've been with my TAC team for just over a year, I would say, as a TAC engineer. I transitioned from a non-technical role into this and came through learning through Netacad. Through what we call is the CTIP program within Cisco. So I came into Cisco, I joined a training program and was shortly transitioned into my team where I began deep diving into data center switches, the Nexus platform in particular, and then took off from there. So a little bit about what we do every day in tech. I'm going to give you sort of the formal and then the informal to follow. So this is sort of our process that we work with every day. We handle TAC cases. These are customers who need help. They open a service request, which then gets forwarded to our team. When we get it, it could be a brand new case that a customer's just opened, or it could be what we call a re-queued case, which is where the customer has been working with another engineer. Maybe that engineer is not available right now. Maybe they're on the other side of the world and the customer needs immediate assistance, so they've re-queued it to us. So we do a few verification things. The goal of this is to make sure that we have the right problem definition. So step one for us is to make sure we're IDing the correct problem. And then from there, we move into the troubleshooting and isolation stage that you see on the right side of the screen there. We have a volume of tools that are available to us. So when we go into troubleshooting, we're working with lab reproductions, as you can see on the bottom left there. We're accessing both external and internal resources. We do use Google, surprise, but we also have Topic, which is sort of an internal Google for us, and a tech zone area as well, where we can share technical information internally with our teams. And then you'll see on the right-hand side where we talk about collaboration and tech zone discussions, because oftentimes it's not just one technology that's being touched on, but multiple. So we need to be able to interact with other teams effectively as well. And you'll see that occasionally, if this doesn't handle everything, if we're not able to reach a conclusion using all of these resources, we might end up with an escalation. We can escalate to our internal teams. You can see some of the stakeholders that get involved here. HTOMs, which is sort of like a white glove customer service that can back us up and help us with communication with customers. We can get involved with our TLs, our tech leads, subject matter experts, and our business units as well. These are the development teams that can help us identify if maybe we've missed something earlier, or perhaps we're hitting a bug that they can help us pin down. And all of this leads to ultimately a closed case where we've reached resolution for the customer. So it seems very nuts and bolts when we look at it this way. But what I really wanted to focus on is how this is much more of an organic process than that as well. So one of the things we're really looking for when we're looking for TAC engineers is people who can communicate well within the team and externally. So we need people who can not only follow the technical process of accepting the request and understanding the problem, but collaborating within the team and collaborating externally with other teams becomes really quite valuable. Being able to communicate with some of our partnership people, right? Both internally and externally as well, becomes very valuable. And this is what really helps us drive day in and day out resolution of our cases so that we can try to deliver the kind of customer experience that our customer base demands and that we pride ourselves on. And then a really critical part that I haven't touched on in a day-to-day TAC engineer is not just the solving of these cases in collaboration, but it's creating the knowledge base. This is really important for us. So we also need engineers who are able to identify maybe gaps in learning, gaps in internal technical documentation, who can then take what they've learned on a case and help share it with the team as well. So some writing skills, a lot of communication. And then I just put a little slide here on sort of the broader scope, right? What is the goal of Cisco TAC? And quite simply, our goal is to deliver world-class technical support. We want to be the best of the best and nail it every time. How do we achieve it? Excellence. And if you can't tell from my last couple of minutes of talking, probably the biggest, most important part is being able to work together as a team. There's just simply too much information for one engineer to know it all, to be able to knock out cases left and right. It's just not realistic. So being able to communicate, rely on one another, being willing and ready to teach the information that you've learned, to look over at somebody else who's maybe stuck on something and say, hey, I've seen that before, let me jump in and help. That sort of communication is quite valuable. And then what does it take to be a successful engineer? I get this one a lot. And one of the biggest things that we look for and value is curiosity. Being able to figure something out is great, but having the curiosity to go, well, why did it work that way? I want to know more, even if it's beyond the scope of what was actually needed for the case. That sort of mentality is invaluable in an engineer. And then again, with the team philosophy, with that sort of paired with, I would say, individual accountability as well. So that's a little bit about TAC and a day in the life and what we do. So thanks for the opportunity to come in and talk to you all. I will shoot it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Scott. This was a good representation, and as always, smooth flow of how TAC works. Appreciate you pulling that together. Ultimately, what we do is in Cisco's Technical Assistance Center is we support the customer in questions and issues that their smartest person can't figure out. So we sell a product called SmartNet Total Care. So if someone buys a router, a switch, a server, a call manager, what have you, they also attach a service onto it. And that's SmartNet Total Care or solution support or high touch technical services. And what that means is when they run into an issue with the product, be it a configuration issue, it has an error, it's not functioning as it should, well, they hit the big red button, and that goes to our TAC teams. Our TAC teams are built out based upon technology. So when your smartest person in your company can't figure it out, you don't want to go to a generalist who's a jack of all trades. You want to go to a deep level expert. So think of the difference between a family medical practice doc in a box on a corner strip mall and a brain surgeon. Two totally different aspects of support are provided. So in TAC, we have the brain surgeons. And what they do is they understand the specific technologies that they work in. And when the customer hits a big red button, a case gets generated. It goes to our TAC engineers based upon their proficiencies. These cases will then be routed to the TAC engineer expertise. They'll grab the case as they come in during the day. And let's talk about a TAC engineer's day. There's really two main parts of the TAC engineer's day. There's queue time, which the new cases come in. And we have several hours of the day that are locked in where we take new cases. Our engineers will take new cases. And then what will happen is another team of engineers will then take cases, and it follows the sun as we go throughout the day. So these cases come in, and the engineer's role is to be able to first understand the problem. And I'm sure every one of you as teachers make sure to drive that home, because if someone comes to you with a vague problem, they'll send you in the wrong direction. So you have to take as much time as needed to fully understand what the problem is, and then you can actually take action to do the troubleshooting and fix the issue. So the type of cases that come in, so there's two parts of the day, typically don't get solved in the first day. So the second part of the day is going to be backlog work. And what that means is you've got a stack of hopefully no more than 20 cases where you're going through and doing troubleshooting. So you'll grab the case, you'll take the customer's configuration, you'll put that configuration in our lab devices and try to replicate the customer's issue, work with the customer on a WebEx, and get an understanding of what they're experiencing, helping them through with some configuration assistance, some understanding of how the device is functioning, how it should be functioning, and then getting them to that point, understanding the outcome that they're trying to achieve. Now, if the issue turns out to be something where the device is not functioning how it should, then we'll replicate the issue in our lab and then reach out to our developers. And the developers will then work with us hand in hand to be able to create a defect, to let customers know, like, hey, if you run this version of code and you're using this feature and you put this type of traffic across the device, you'll have this unexpected outcome. We know about this, and the fixes upcoming in this next iteration of code is typically how that works. Cisco does a really good job of letting people know our defects so they don't run into them, or they can plan or work around them. So that's something that the TAC engineer does. That's the cool part about being a TAC engineer, is you not only get to save the day for Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, trading floors, Universal Pictures, large companies like that, you get to save the day for, which is really cool. But you also get to shape Cisco's technology. So engineers not only fix customers' issues, but we fix our technology as well by working with the developers to say, hey, I see it's doing this. Oftentimes we have engineers that will actually jump in the code of the devices, just depending on the teams, that will say, I see it's doing this one thing. What if we change this code, work with the developers, make that change, and then make our technology better? Now, it doesn't just stop at the technology. It's also our documentation. Now, the cool thing is we have the ability to update Cisco's website with updated documentation. So we'll create technology defects, we'll create documentation defects, and we'll also do enhancement requests. So if a customer says, hey, I wish this product would do this, we'll open a case with the developers and let them know, hey, we have customers that want this functionality or feature to work in this manner. And then we'll hopefully be able to get it pushed through. The documentation aspect is kind of neat as well. So if you have release notes for each version of code or each flavor of a device, well, we want our customers to read that document and trust it. And if there's ever a case that gets generated based upon a possible misunderstanding of the document, well, the tech engineers will have the capability to update that document. Now, the cool thing that we're working on now, and we realize just about everybody in here has probably lived in a home and driven or ridden in a car. And when there's an issue with your home or your car, what's typically the first place you go and look to solve the problem?
Online. You hit,
The internet.
YouTube.
You don't go and look for the PDF of a Honda Accord and all the manuals. No, you look for somebody who's going to be able to do it on a video and walk you through it. I just did some dishwasher repair. My dishwasher door, the spring, and it snapped. And I was like, oh, nuts. Oh, first place I go is YouTube. And there's some handy guy with the spring set. And he's like, oh, it's easy. You just do this, this, and this. It's done. Well, that saved me all kinds of time. So our customers want to do the same thing. Everybody is trained to be able to find quick answers, and we should be able to make sure that those quick answers are there for them. So Scott is actually one of the awesome engineers who's created some walkthrough videos for our customer, and you can find those on YouTube or cisco.com/video/TAC is where those ultimately wind up, which are pretty handy. So that's typically the breakdown of a day of what a tech engineer does to provide value to our customers for that service. One of the things that you will see in the chat is I actually have a job opening in my team, and that'll give you some idea of what I'm looking for technically. And then also, really, attitude is everything. You could be the smartest person in the world, but if you're a jerk, I don't want you on my team. I want somebody who's not only going to learn, but turn around and teach, climb up the mountain, and then immediately turn around and help other people up as well. I want someone to walk down a treacherous path, and as they go down that path, they clean it up. They make it safer for the next person to walk down. And that speaks to a little bit of what Scott spoke to earlier with documentation. So documentation in the case is crucial. If you work on an issue and it goes off to the next team and they don't know what you did, oh, we're in trouble. Another thing to think about is we have topic. So he mentioned topic. Now, the cool part about topic is it is a Google-like reference for every case that TAC has taken in the past 13 years. So imagine of the 2 million cases that we take a year, we're typically going to run into maybe some similar issues. So if you're experiencing a problem, you have the symptom, you have maybe even the log signature. Well, you can do a quick search in topic and it'll show you the 15, 20, 30 cases that had similar issues. You pull up those cases and you look to see what the other engineers have done. It's a huge, valuable path to be able to follow down. Another cool thing that we have in TAC is the use of programmability. So what do I mean by that? Well, anytime a customer pulls a log from a device, and you're all aware of logging, that's essentially the diary of everything that plugs into the wall and has blinky lights, right? And dear diary, today I turned on and I communicated with this device, and this is the language that we talked, and we talked for 5 minutes, and these are the things we said. So these logs are super valuable to be able to do troubleshooting in isolation. So as soon as a customer uploads a log to our TAC case, it goes to a device called a taster. So Giza, what do you think a taster does?
Basically, it evaluates what's coming down the road.
Yeah, it grabs that log and it tastes it.
Tastes
and
it
says,
out.
you know what? This is an iOS router log, and it throws it to a gateway. And in this gateway, it's a board gateway. What it does is this gateway has a portfolio of scripts that this log is run against. And it says, okay, do you have any weird configuration issues? So for us old folks, half duplex. Who sets half duplex anymore? But well, sometimes that happens. And it'll call out that issue. Oh, looks like you've got a signature that links to this defect. And it'll call that out in the case. So every time a log is uploaded to a TAC case, these portfolio of scripts will actually run against that log, which is great. Now, those scripts are created by TAC engineers. Every time you spend 5 hours trying to figure something out, you want to make sure that the next person doesn't go through that same thing. And that's where our scripting comes in. That's where our documentation comes in. So those are the type of people that I want on my team. I want somebody who's curious. I want someone, if the device is no longer experiencing the symptom after a reboot, they say, all right, well, everything's good, and they go away. I want someone who's going to pull the logs and try to figure out what happened. Somebody try to recreate this issue. Because the type of issues that we work on in Cisco TAC, well, if our devices are down, hospitals have to turn patients away. And that's terrifying. So we can't make a mistake. We can't just say, oh, this will never happen again. We need to make sure that we understand why the issue occurred and how to ensure that it doesn't happen again, or that we let people know that if they do these steps, they could experience an outage. So we've got about 9 minutes left. What
I had a
questions
quick
do you have?
question. You talk about those scripts you're running it against. Is there any move to take AI to run against those scripts and develop an AI to look at it, kind of like we're doing with logs for security now?
Yeah, 100%. So we have several teams that are driving AI. We even have an automated TAC engineer called Sherlock that leverages AI and machine learning to be able to look at what people do within their cases, and then it'll actually follow up the customer based upon past learning in the case, and then real-time training. Sometimes we do. There's a term called automated Turk, where there's actually an engineer teaching Sherlock through an actual case, and then it'll start replicating that. There was an issue last holiday called Log4j. I don't know if you're probably familiar with that. Yeah, that was something that we were able to capture and answer and help customers through somewhere in the realm of like 80 some odd thousand cases with Sherlock's assistance.
Really good. Anyone else have any questions? Keisha, Robin? I do have one little thing myself I want to mention to you on your your job requisition.
Yeah.
Please do me a favor and remove the bachelor's degree requirement.
I fully agree.
You are shooting yourself in the foot, because our community college folks who have CCNAs and have been through these classes can't make it through your HR department because of that one little line. That's something that I do know Cisco at TAC is actually hiring community college graduates. No doubt, because I've got several people who work there that have graduated. But I just don't want a really good candidate to be disqualified simply because HR looks at that and says, won't happen. That's my one little thing I'll put in there.
Kelly, I fully agree with you. I'm going to ping my recruiter as soon as we get off this call and see if we can get that removed. You're totally right. Full transparency, I have an associate's degree from Culinary Arts School, and just changed my path. And I changed my path through going to classes at Wake Tech Community College for network support.
And that's really where I see this partnership we have here too with high schools. We bring these folks out of your programs for the high schools, get them a 2-year degree, and boom, get them a good job. And a lot of them come out with their certifications. They come out, we sent a guy from our school who had a CCNP already when he went to Cisco to join TAC. And, he was 6 months to a year ahead of everybody in his group, because that's what they did for the first 6 months, was get their CCNA and started their CCNP. So, Casey, have you any other question?
Not at this time.
I was actually wondering, I've had folks who work this type of support for other businesses like Microsoft and others. How often does a case stretch on for, I know a guy who actually was involved and worked for straight almost 20 hours on a case with a large vendor. Those types of things happen. I mean, Fortune 500 companies. How often is it that a case, stretches like that you get a huge case that requires multi-day, I mean, you obviously would bring your whole team in at that point. Everybody's coming in.
That's every day.
Every day.
So every day we get cases and we call them follow the sun, or FDS. And what that means is you have to have an engineer will hand that case off. And there's some continuity with our account teams and some of our SEs, but typically our tech engineers, we have a set of business hours that we like to stick to. We don't, I don't want Scott working 24-hour days. So we have peer teams all over the world, and we allow follow the sun. And that's the quality of life that we want to bring, but it also brings business continuity. So if we didn't have teams in Mexico City when Richardson had an ice storm and they were essentially shut down, we wouldn't have been able to transition that workload to them nor RTP. Same thing with Sydney, Australia. We've got teams in Krakow. We have TAC teams all over the world. And the fact that we're now hybrid, there's no centralized location at this point in time. Now, that being said, I can tell you when engineers come into the office, it is super helpful for them to be able to be immersed in a pool of prior knowledge and have those role models. So hybrid work is certainly great. There's just some other benefits as well to being in the office.
I've told people, I wonder how many billion-dollar ideas have gone by the wayside in the last 2 years because of conversations that did not take place around the coffee maker or the, in the lunch room. I really think that it'll be years and years before we know, but I think there's been irreparable harm to us as a species due to that. But,
A lot of people tell me that a lot of things go on if you're playing golf with people, in the business. That's where a lot of deals are done. And for the past 2 years, I've been saying it, that I don't know how long it's going to be till we fully realize or recover, because I think there's going to be permanent damage because of all this.
Hopefully we can evolve. Hopefully we come
That's
up
right.
with a better solution than having to stare at a screen all day. If we can figure it out, and I think, we've overcome some challenges in the past decades and centuries. We could probably figure it out.
Humans
By
are
the
pretty
way,
resilient.
By the way, I worked tech support myself for, I don't know, 20 some years, on the phones myself. I've done it, field work and tech support level 1, level 2, and what you folks call the marathon calls.
Yep.
I've been there, done that.
Well, it's good to have one of those a year or one of those every other year, just to remind you how good your life is.
That's funny. Well, Chris and Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us the day in the life of a TAC engineer and what
That's
what we're
cool.
looking for in a TAC engineer. So I'm gonna
Well,
stop. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, no, you can stop the recording. I was just going to say, I myself, I'm a resource. I have the highest respect for teachers. Both my parents are teachers, and I appreciate the fact that you all work to have an impact in people's lives. That means a lot. So don't hesitate to use me as a resource as well. Reach out. If you have some shining stars that you want to co-sign on, let me know.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm gonna stop the recording now.